They may not really, trying to understand it to develop knowledge of the super soul. That requires a little bit more intelligence or knowledge. So a yogi may be doing, the same in devotional service. Everybody comes to devotional service, and we don't all come exactly for the same reason. So, so we'll control the mind to get something, and we realize for peace, shanti, shanti, shanti. That's what most people want, isn't it?
I more meant the physical aspect of it. So the yogis, when doing yoga, the physical aspect is controlling the mind. You know, the all the sitting postures and the like reducing food and water and all that. That's what they're controlling the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Well, that's preliminary. They do
Yeah,
all those things so that the mind becomes still.
yeah, yeah,
The airs in the body flow nicely, and then the mind becomes peaceful, and then they can focus it on an objective.
yeah.
But they've all got different objectives. Like Harry Houdini, he was a yogi. They used to tie him up and put him in a case and submerge it under the sea. And half an hour later, we thought he was a goner. Then they used to pull it back up again. They were okay. He can stop. A yogi can stop his breathing. Or he could even become so small that he gets out of the case before they've even put it in the sea. And then when they bring it back up, he gets back in before they open it. He can climb through the knots that they've tied him up with. So, these are yogic cities. We're getting a bit diverted here, but anyway. Yeah, so the mind is like the commander in chief. Yeah. The commander in chief of everything. And therefore how do we conquer the mind? We beat it with a stick in the morning, and we beat it with a shoe at night. Okay. Any questions?
This statement of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati sounds quite brutal.
Mm.
Isn't good to give to the mind sometimes some sugar to or
Yeah, I mean, you get a beating with a stick first, so. But yeah, we're chanting, isn't it? Control the mind by focusing on the holy name, then the mind becomes purified of material desires. And then we can understand our relationship with Krishna eventually. When everything's cleared away. Because all there is in devotional service, what is it? There's us, there's service, and there's Krishna. There's only us and obviously other devotees, but there's us and Krishna, and the difference is service. And so this is our process. We don't have to worry about anything else. Ultimately, obviously we have to work it, but the chief thing is to focus on Krishna's holy name and then engage in his service in the day, focusing on Krishna during the day as much as possible, not being unconscious. That's devotional service. Okay, we finished the next of instruction now. But we're complicated, aren't we? But what about this? And what about that? Any other things on the mind? Anything's on your mind? That's what it says in Facebook, isn't it? What's on your mind? Okay, so we'll carry on. Silence is golden again. Anybody remember that? Um,
maybe I can mention how scientific is nowadays news, how to manipulate the mind of the people. It's quite amazing to see how much effect certain news have on the mind of the people and their consciousness. And
Yeah, that's the media. The media is all about that, isn't it?
Mhm.
Attracting, and it works.
Yeah,
It works. If our mind's not controlled, we'll become attracted. They know how to attract the mind. And that's why, when they're advertising something, they've got a beautiful woman, it's got nothing to do with what they're selling. But we think, oh, if I buy that, I might get, I might get a beautiful woman. That's what people are subconsciously thinking. Right. So we'll change to Jai Krishna Prabhu.
So it's whatever state.
At the time of death.
Okay. At the time of death, the mind and intelligence in a living entity create the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. If the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial, one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, he can be transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advises devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and only to taste only Krishna Prasad. Srila Rupa Goswami further advises Tishtan Vraji. One should live in Vrindavan or any part of Vrajabhumi. Vrajabhumi, or the land of Vrindavan, is supposed to be 84 krosas in area. 1 krosa equals 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes. This is further elucidated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Krishnam Smaran Janam Chasya Prestam Nija Samihitam Tat Tat Katar Ratas Chashu Kuryad Vasham Vraje Sada. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Vraj and always engage in Krishnam Smaranam Gyanam Chashya Prestam, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and by entering under the eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again,
Okay. So that's an advanced state, actually. But still, we can still do that. We're following Krishna's associates, devotees, also, to some degree, lesser or greater. They have that connection with Krishna. So if we follow Krishna's devotees who are more experienced than us, we can start to advance that way. Because advancement, really, it's Vani and Vapu. Vani means instructions from Shastra, and Vapu means association. And it always says that Vani is more important, doesn't it? Because we can take that association if we don't get the association of the person. But, also those who were with Prabhupada, they write books about it, how it was beneficial for them to see devotional service in practice like that. So yeah, that's called, when we actually understand something about anyway, we don't have to go into all that just now. We'll change readers. Kushbu Masri, do you want to read?
Okay, Maharaj. So again, Srila Rupa Goswami from there. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, Srila Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Seva sadhaka rupena, siddha rupena chatrahi, tad bhava lipshuna karya, vraja loka nusharataha. In the transcendental realm of Raja, Rajdham, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a feeling similar to that of his associates, and one should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization, when one is Siddha Purush or a spiritually perfect soul. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows upon this verse. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely, chanting and remembering Krishna and his name, form, quality, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service.
Okay, so that's so we all go to Vrindavan, right? At a certain point, we all go to Vrindavan. Yeah?
I would like to think that.
No, yeah, when Lord Chaitanya was trying to go to Vrindavan, one of his devotees said to him, wherever you are, that's Vrindavan. So it's also a frame of mind or consciousness.
You've vanished again, Maharaj.
Can you hear me now?
No, your pitch is gone.
We can't see you.
Seeing is not so important. What is it? What? I'll go over it again then. I'm just having
Vrindavan.
what?
We discussed Vrindavan. So
Yeah,
how
I mean,
much? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's good to go to Vrindavan but you know, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he left his body in America on one farm. I think it was Gita Nagari farm. That's in Pennsylvania, I think. And one of the reasons he said he did it is to show that one can go back to Godhead without actually necessarily going to Vrindavan. You know, Vrindavan is actually a consciousness also. We can go to Vrindavan and we can be somewhere else. Wait a minute, I'm just, don't lose my train of thinking. We can go to Vrindavan and we can be somewhere else. And so, anyway, I forgot it now. Go on, you carry on.
I just say, first time I went to Vrindavan, I went with Rampa, and I was just a tourist. It was just it was a holiday. And then second time I went with Kripa Moya, and that was different. That was different. I think he introduced something else to it.
First time, what?
First time it's just me and Rampa, and we were just tourists. I didn't remember Krishna at all. The second
Yeah.
time I went with Kripa Moya, and it was very different. So he kind of took us round, and it was a very different experience.
Yeah, that's the point I'm making. Yeah, it's a different experience when we go with somebody who knows what they're talking about, you know. But it opens the exam up when somebody reveals, you know, what's actually happened here and in that mood that we actually also feel that. But in Bhagavad Gita, I was talking about the point of, it tells you the time, in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it tells the times you should leave your body. Yeah. Once you leave it in the light, when the sun's traveling to the north or the south,
Yeah.
and like that. And then one can go back, or if the yogi leaves his body when it's traveling in the smoke, when the sun's traveling to the south, and this and the other, then he stays in this material world. He says, but the devotee is not bewildered by either of these things. He just practices devotional service and Krishna takes care. So, the main thing is to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness, and therefore it doesn't matter where we are, we're actually in the spiritual world. So I think I mentioned this before, Prabhupada was on a walk, one devotee, I think I mentioned it last week actually, and the devotee took him the wrong way. He took him through a dump, a bad part of the town. He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, Prabhupada, but I didn't really mean to bring us this way." He said, "It's such a degraded place." And Prabhupada said, "No." He says, "This is Vaikuntha." He says, "You don't have the eyes to see it, that's all." So, we see the world through our mind, don't we? Through our consciousness. Okay, so we'll change readers again. You've got a question?
I'm not sure if it is a question. I mean, could be. So, Maharaj, we do hear that wherever the glories of Krishna are being sung, that is Vrindavan. And just like you mentioned just now, that it is consciousness and it's not really us staying there, because some people, we can go there. I can go there and just still not be in Vrindavan and be somewhere else in my mind. But then, why do so many people or devotees want to reside in Vrindavan or reside in Vrindavan if they can reside anywhere and just be conscious of Krishna, and that is Vraja itself? But so why is the requirement? I mean, why do they choose to go and live there?
Well, I was listening to Prabhupada yesterday. He was talking to it, and it was the early days. He was talking to the devotees. I think it must have been in New York or, 1960s, 1966, 67, like that. Maybe a little later. But anyway, I was saying, I didn't choose to come here. I was asked to come here. He says, I was doing all right in Vrindavan. I had no botheration. I was, I could practice devotional service. I was happy there. He says, but for a higher cause, I came, my spiritual master asked me to preach in the West, so I came. So that's why we don't necessarily go there. It depends on the consciousness. If we just want to, develop our own Krishna consciousness, or whether we want to, help Lord Chaitanya's mission to expand. So if by force of circumstances, by default, we find ourselves in Vrindavan and service is required there, then we can do that. But, maybe we should think carefully about what the process actually is. It's not being physically there, that's all. Because if we go there and we're not ready, we'll probably finish up in Maya. We're in the place we need to be and try and make the best of that. And that's a devotee's move. We can make the best of every situation. And Krishna will make up the difference if we think we're lacking. But obviously, we have to be intelligent enough to get as much association, go to the temple and associate with devotees as much as possible. That's our duty as well. We have to look after ourselves and look after the preaching. If we don't look after ourselves, we can't preach. but we don't all have to be packed up in Vrindavan. You know what I mean? And then, there's no preaching. That's the thing. Okay, well, change readers. Is Sita Takarani available, Mataji?
For that.
How is Don, by the way? Is he okay?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Don is not very well still. He had a diagnosis of COVID.
Oh,
but it's not contagious.
okay.
But yeah, some strange symptoms.
Anyway, we give him everybody's blessings. I'm sure everybody wants him to get well.
He's listening.
Okay.
So he can hear. Thank you. Okay. Starts in the neophyte stage. Is that right? Yeah. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Ravana Dasa, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy names of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varana Dasa. When one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smara Navasta, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it's called anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of samadhi or spiritual trance. After smarana dasha or samadhi has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. That is called Sampati Dasha, the perfection of life.
Okay. So, Shravana means hearing. And then Varanadas, that means accepting. We become convinced when we accept the process. And then by ongoing practicing, is when one can chant in ecstasy. This is called Smaranavastadas. And that's like remembrance. Krishna appears in the mind. And then it becomes different stages of remembering until it's complete. We're always remembering that samadhi. And then what will develop from that, when we're always engaged in remembering Krishna, we'll remember who we are. We shouldn't prematurely think, we're associated with Krishna, Do you know who I am? They say that in Bengal, actually. When somebody's being a bit rough with him, do you know who I am? So it's good to learn this section, that little section that you read. Sampati Dasa. Okay. Jai Krishna Prabhu.
I'm just thinking about that bit we were talking about, where Rupa Goswami's saying one should always reside in Vrindavan. I was wondering when he wrote Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there were no books because the printing press hadn't been kind of made. And if you wanted to hear about Krishna and be involved in Krishna consciousness, you had to go to Vrindavan because that's where all the serious devotees were, right? So
No,
there were probably no other option
not
then.
all of them. I mean, there's some in Bengal as well.
Yeah.
Orissa, and South India maybe.
South
But,
India. Yeah.
Gaudiya Vaishnavism, yeah, I mean, what are you saying anyway? Can you just
But the
confirm?
whole reside in Vrindavan thing, and
Yeah,
but Prabhupada kind of elucidate, saying you can make kind of your own environment, Vrindavan.
yeah,
I'm wondering how possible that was back then, because there wasn't books for starters. So the only way you could hear about Krishna is by hearing from someone speaking about Krishna.
There were books,
Well,
but they were not.
yeah, I mean, you would actually live with, it weren't like Lord Chaitanya's movement then. It was
Yeah.
just starting. The preaching was different. The preaching was to bring people to the temple and see the deity and gradually develop that way. But, we won't find many people in the West coming to temple. In fact, anybody, we have to go out and, get their interest and then bring them to the temple.
And it was actually the Goswamis who re-uncovered all the sites, wasn't it? So before then, the sites were kind of all basically overgrown. No one even knew they were there. And the Goswamis
Yeah,
uncovered them all.
they become covered, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, devotional service, it's constantly being challenged by the material energy, It's being covered like by clouds. You can't cover devotional service. It's eternally existent. But it can be covered from our memory, like the sun can be covered from our sight. And so, the clouds of the material energy are constantly trying to cover this devotional service. And so at that time, when Lord Chaitanya appeared, everything had become so degraded. That's why they asked Lord Chaitanya to come. And then when he left, things started to decline again. And then went back to Vinod Thakur, and there was always acharyas there, but then he started to, defeat all these upper sampradayas or so-called devotional service. Upper sampradaya is not the proper sampradaya, There are 13 different sampradayas or bogus sampradayas. I think I mentioned this: owls, bowls, Kartabaj, Sakibeki, Chowdhury, Dirvaj, like that. And they're all centered around sense enjoyment. And so devotional service has become, practically people, when you mention the devotee, the Vaishnava, they keep away from you because they were so degraded. More, these so-called Vaishnavas, not all would be like that though. That's the point. So yeah, well, that's why I probably want to keep this movement strong, so that everybody can take advantage of devotional service. It's protected by the principles and devotees working together. So we have to somehow or other work in that vein. We won't always be in the position we want to be in, but or we won't always be in an agreeable situation. But we should understand that we follow Prabhupada's direction and associate with devotees, then, if things will go forward. Okay, does that shine up? What do you want to read?
The Chaitanya Charitamrita advises those who are neophytes to give up all kinds of motivated desires and simply engage in the regulative devotional service of the Lord, according to the directions of Scripture. In this way, a neophyte can gradually develop attachment for Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and so forth. When one has developed such attachment, he can spontaneously serve the lotus feet of Krishna, even without following the regulative principles. This stage is called Raga Bhakti, or devotional service in spontaneous love. At that stage, the devotee can follow in the footsteps of one of the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. This is called Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service, can be executed in Shantaras when one aspires to be like Krishna's cows, or the stick or flute in Krishna's hand, or the flowers around Krishna's neck. In Dasyaras, one follows in the footsteps of servants like Chitraka, Patraka, or Raktaka. In friendship, Sakiras, one can become a friend like Baladev, Sridham, or Sudama. In Vatsalyaras, characterized by parental affection, one can become like Nanda Maharaj or Yashoda, and in Madhurya Ras, characterized by conjugal love, one can become like Shrimati Radharani or her lady friends such as Lalita, or her serving maids Manjaris like Rupa and Rati. This is the essence of all instruction in the matter of devotional service.
Okay. So that's called Raga Bhakti, and when we're purified enough, we'll get a taste for serving Krishna in a certain way. And then we become Raganuga, Anuga Bhaktis, Raganuga. We follow a Raga Bhakta who will be attracted to a certain type of service. And internally, we'll develop that devotional service and the proper guidance. But externally, we'll be like a neophyte. We won't show that. So anybody who's actually showing off, it means a bogus, you know. You won't know who's a Raganuga Bhakta. It's a personal thing. And that'll develop in due course. We don't have to worry about that. When a Prabhupada's disciple says, what's my form in the spiritual world, Prabhupada? And Prabhupada said, you shouldn't be bothered about that at this stage. He said, just get up for Mangalati, you know. So it's like that. When we get a natural taste for devotional service, you know, we just like, it's not an effort. And in Prabhupada, it's not, you know, one thing is to remember is that when we were a preaching mission, we go through a lot of austerities to make that mission successful. And so this is also a type of absorption, samadhi, you know. And who's our Raganuga Bhakta? Who's our Ragatmika Bhakta who we follow? It's Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya. They didn't, you know, they showed us what to do. Lord Chaitanya came to show us how to practice devotional service. And he just chanted and spread Krishna consciousness. And then in his latter pastimes, he developed, you know, well, he's already the Supreme Lord, but he showed symptoms of ecstatic love. That's a goal. We can't artificially do that. Neither should we. Prabhupada didn't do that. So we follow Prabhupada's example. He actually said, do as I do. So we want to be running off looking for a Radha Bhakti, you know. Otherwise, you know, we don't really know what we're looking for anyway. Is that right? Okay, thank you, Sharanda Prabhu. Any questions on that? No, we'll go on to. Okay. maybe Rachel can read. This is text 9.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Vaikunthaj Janito Vara Madhupuri Tadrapi Rasat Savat Rindaranayam Uttarapani Brahmanant Tadrapi Govardhanaha Radhakundam Ihapi Gokula Pate Prema Plavanant Kuyat Asya Vrijato Giritate Selang Viliki Nakaha. The holy place known as Mathura is spiritually superior to Vaikuntha, the transcendental world, because the Lord appeared there. Superior to Mathura Puri is the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, because of Krishna's Rasa Lila pastimes. And superior to the forest of Vrindavan is Govardhan Hill, for it was raised by the divine hand of Sri Krishna, and was the site of his various loving pastimes. And above all, this super excellent Sri Radhakund stands supreme, for it is over-flooded with the ambrosial nectarian prema of the Lord of Gokula, Sri Krishna. Where then is that intelligent person who is willing to serve this divine Radhakund, which is situated at the foot of Govardhan Hill? The spiritual world is 3/4 of the total creation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and it is the most exalted region. The spiritual world is naturally superior to the material world. However, Mathura and the adjoining areas, although appearing in the material world, are considered superior to the spiritual world because the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself appeared at Mathura. The interior forest of Vrindavan are considered superior to Mathura because of the presence of the 12 forests, Davadasha Vana, such as Talavana, Madhuvana, and Bullavana, which are famous for the various pastimes of the Lord. Thus, the interior of Vrindavan forest is considered superior to Mathura, but superior to these forests is the divine Govardhan Hill, because Krishna lifted Govardhan Hill like an umbrella, raising it with his lotus-like beautiful hand to protect his associates, the denizens of Braj, from the torrential rains sent by the angry Indra, king of the demigods. It's also a Govardhan Hill that Krishna tends the cows with his cowherd friends, and there also he had his rendezvous with his most beloved Sri Radha and engaged in loving pastimes with her. Radhakund at the foot of Govardhan is superior to all because it is there that the love of Krishna overflows. Advanced devotees prefer to reside at Radhakund because this place is the site of many memories of the eternal loving affairs between Krishna and Radharani, Rati Vilas.
Okay. So that's a hierarchy. That's a hierarchy of abodes. First is Mathura. That is a certain mood. Similar to Dwarka, it's like awe and reverence. Although, and then the forests of Vrindavan, where Krishna performed his pastimes. But then his best pastimes are on Govardhan, where he lifted the hill for 7 days, and all the devotees had a chance to see him unrestrictedly. That Govardhan, it was actually created that's it. Radharani approached Krishna. He says, "My dear Lord, please, make a spiritual abode with, a super excellent abode, which is," and she delineated what she would like, a super excellent spiritual abode where we can perform our pastimes. And when Radharani finished speaking, he said he meditated, and also from his heart came a little seed, and that seed, fell to the ground, started to grow, and that was Govardhan. So it was a super excellent place of pastimes. So, and we all know the story of what was his name, Pulasya Muni. Then Lord Brahma started praying. He needed help. He prayed to Lord Krishna to actually come to the material world, and so he said he told Radharani, I need to go to the spiritual world, not to the spiritual, to the material world, and I'd like you to come with me. And he said, I'll only go if we take Govardhan with us. He says it's already gone. He's already made arrangements. And so then when the pastimes carried on in the material world, Goloka is the spiritual realm. Gokul is a material counterpart. And so, do you know that story of Govardhan, Pulasya Muni? He was, he was a great mystic, very powerful. He was flying over and he saw this beautiful hill. I thought, wow. He thought that would be really nice if I could, all my disciples and companions could actually meditate there. And so he landed and he spoke to, I forget his name, the father of Govardhan. And he greeted him nicely and served him very nicely. And like anything else, when a great sage comes, says, "Please tell me what can I do for you? Anything you want, what service?" And he said, "Well, I'd like to take Govardhan Hill with me. Be just right for my meditation, and everything we need is there. It's beautiful." And I can't remember his name, but the father of Govardhan said, "Oh," he was like heartbroken. He said, "I can only send Govardhan if he agrees to go." And so he told Govardhan the situation. He said, "Well, I have to go because we can't refuse now we've made that promise." He says, "But tell him that I'll only go when he's taking me there." He said, "Well, you get him this, so don't worry, that won't be a problem." Usual. He says, anyway, he says, "Tell him," Govardhan said, "if I'll go, providing that wherever he puts me down, the first place he puts me down, I'll stay there." And so Pulasya Muni agreed, and so he stuck his little finger under Govardhan, and by his mystic power lifted the whole hill, and he started flying through the sky. And then after a while, he got an incredible urge and you call it nature. And, it was just too much. Yet he came down and he landed and he went in after his coronation. He went and took a shower and he came back and he couldn't lift the hill. And so he said, so he cursed the hill. "I curse you that every day you'll actually, is it every day or every year? Every day you'll reduce in size by one mustard seed." So there's a whole story behind Govardhan, and it's called Haridas Varya. Haridas means servant of Hari. Varya means the best. He's the best servant of Lord Hari. But don't miss next week's episode. Next week we'll hear about somewhere even more spiritual. Okay. Okay, thank you. We'll call it a day. Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Oh, Maharaj.